You have no idea how shy and socially awkward I used to be. Bro, back in school, I had that reputation of just being this silent kid. People would make fun of me. No one ever wanted to sit next to me in class because they knew that I would just not say a word to them. I was so afraid and anxious of talking to other people. I was afraid they would judge me, that they would make fun of me, that I just completely turned in on myself. I wouldn't speak to anyone outside of my small group of friends. This is kind of like a stereotype, like you think this only exists in films. But before classes started, when I arrived early in school, instead of going and like hanging out with the rest of my class, like outside the building where we took registration, I'd literally lock myself in a cubicle in like one of the toilets to just like let the time pass by just until that first lesson started. And you'd think that as the years went by, I would just grow out of that problem. Like, you know, I'd hit puberty and suddenly be really good at socializing. But that definitely was not the case. So somehow I managed to make friends with like a slightly cooler group when I got to like age 17, 18. And they would bring me along to my first couple of parties, really the first time I got on to socialize with the opposite sex and drink and have those fun times, those like experiences that all teenagers want. And before we go out, because this was like such a new experience for me, I'd be hyping myself up, bro. Like I'd be thinking this is the moment where my life is gonna change. Like this is a new start for me. I'm gonna become this social person. I'm gonna be this confident person who gets girls. I'm gonna walk into that party and just have like a group of girls around me. I'm gonna be like really witty and charming. I'm literally gonna be like Hugh Hefner. And then we'd get to the party, and of course nothing changed. I'd be standing on the opposite side of the room to all the girls, just like refusing to talk to any of them, just being paralyzed with fear. Or if I got my confidence up, if I had a couple of drinks, I might be able to stand on the edge of one of my friends' conversations, like trying to look cool, laughing at their jokes that when they were flirting with these girls, like pretending I understood what the joke was, just standing there trying not to look awkward, like my hands in my pockets. And really that would just be killing me inside. I pretend to other people that I didn't care, that like, oh yeah, I'm just like the strong silent type, I'm a man of few words, I'm stoic, I'm a Sigma. But really, bro, I cared so much. I really wanted to be like them. I wanted to pull girls. I wanted to be this socially confident person. And I had kind of an epiphany one day that maybe I wasn't as helpless as I thought. Because these friends around me, I think one of my friends had just gotten a new girlfriend. And I really started to think deeply, like, what actually separates this guy from me? So I hadn't been friends with this group for very long at this point. But they hadn't come from like a really popular background. These guys weren't like the ones who were like really good at sports. They weren't super popular. But something had changed for them. They'd gotten to a particular level of comfort with these like social situations where they knew a lot of people. They were like, could speak to girls, they could do all of this. But they'd kind of come from the same starting point as I had. So I realized, I've kind of just got to copy these guys. I've got to start doing what they do. And then eventually I'm going to understand the ways. I'm going to become this confident person. So all the way back then is when this process started for me of improving my social skills, of going through the absolute trenches of awkwardness and just being super uncomfortable with speaking to people, to where I'm at now. Bro, I live a life of social freedom right now. I can comfortably speak to any person that I choose. I can be walking down the street and stop a bad bitch and get her number. Like, bro, like these are the things that used to scare me to death before. I can be in the gym and I'm just like striking up a conversation with someone I don't know, and like 10 seconds later I've made a new friend. It is that easy for me. Like I'm living life on easy mode right now. And I know I don't sound particularly humble, but like I can tell you that compared to where I was, this is absolutely liberating. Like so many more opportunities have opened up in life because of this newfound confidence, this ability to speak to people. I no longer feel like that just like absolutely awkward freak when I go into a party or like go into a new room of people. I trust in myself. So I want to teach you how to get outside of your own head and become a more socially free and confident person. I'm going to tell you how to do that in this video. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is super important. Like, this is a very important thing to get through your head. And I think it's just kind of getting your expectations in check about what socializing really looks like, what the emotions attached to that experience really look like. So I used to have this fantasy that I would never be socially awkward one day, that I would always have this free-flowing confidence, that I'd always be able to just go up to a person and speak to them, get to know them, like rizz up a hot girl or something, without feeling that anxiety, without slightly overthinking it in my head. And I'm going to tell you something. Even with how good I am at socializing right now, that anxiety has never once left my thoughts. I still get socially anxious when I'm off to meet a new group of people. Shit, people I already know. When I'm like going on a night out, when I'm anticipating meeting some people I already know, I still get like a little twang of social anxiety. And that is completely normal. That fantasy that I was experiencing of being the social guy 24/7, of never having any anxiety, it's just an illusion. I very much experience anxiety. I've just got better at managing it. In my journey to get better at socializing, I've had mentors, I've had friends who I've gone out with who are way better socially than I am. I've been exposed to some of the most confident people you'll ever meet in your entire life. And I understood very quickly that none of them, like, despite what you might think, none of them have this like extrovertedness 24/7. None of them have like the energy to socialize all the time. Quite often they go into situations and they're literally forcing themselves, like they don't even want to socialize. But the point is, bro, even the best guys, they still need to warm up. They can't just flip a switch and then they're suddenly feeling really social. They're suddenly not feeling anxious anymore. It just doesn't work that way. So I think knowing that I'm not the only one who experiences this, that there are often times where I'll go into these situations feeling like a nervous wreck, knowing that that's normal is kind of, it allows me to just push through the resistance, because I know that this is something that's going to get better. I kind of have to force myself to do it at first, but things will turn out all right. So to just give you an example, so the other day I'm getting a workout in the gym, and I see a guy who we used to go to school together. And I kind of have this thing with when I see people from my past. I'm very confident and comfortable with new people especially, but people who knew the old version of me, that was very shy, that struggled to speak to people, I kind of tend to freeze up a little bit around those people when I see them now. It's like a little bit of cognitive dissonance in my mind. I'm like, I want them to acknowledge that I've changed, that I'm not that person anymore, which is really weird. But the point is, it kind of makes me a little bit tense when I see people who I used to know. We start speaking to each other and I'm like caught a little bit off guard. I'm feeling a little bit tense and nervous, and I'm kind of feeling that pressure, like I'm going to mess up my words. I'm going to say something that will make him judge me or see me in a negative light. And then I become mindful of this anxiety. I acknowledge that I'm experiencing this, and actually it's normal. It's perfectly normal to feel this way given where I came from. So I just keep going with this conversation. I acknowledge that I'm not necessarily at my best, but if I keep going, if I keep acting like everything's normal, eventually it will turn out completely fine. And as the conversation goes on, those anxiety symptoms start to disappear. I stop being so hard on myself. And I'm thinking, like, what was I even anxious about? Like, this has been a perfectly good conversation. We've caught up. It's clear as day that I'm a new person, that I am comfortable. So just hold on to that knowledge. Let that be a comfort to you, that even the best guys, they still experience anxiety. That's totally normal. So let me move on. So I used to have this misconception that, you know, when I was about to go to these parties, that if I hype myself up enough, that if I put myself in the right moods, that I would become this really social person. I'd be like Hugh Hefner, able to speak to all the girls. I used to think that I could almost will myself into that social state of mind. But then, of course, nothing different would actually end up happening. I'd still be that awkward, quite introverted kind of guy who couldn't really speak to people. And I think that's when I realised you can't just pull social skills from the void. You can't get social skills by watching videos, and that's me being completely honest with you. You're not going to learn social skills, like really learn them, by sitting at home watching YouTube or reading books. You're only going to learn them through a process of consistency, going out there and consistently building the experience. With social skills, consistency is the real deal. Just going out there and forcing yourself into these uncomfortable situations just for the sake of practice. That is how you will get better at socializing. For instance, the other day I heard about this work social thing that I could have gone along to for other people who are kind of at the start of their career, like a networking thing, but a more informal setting. So I heard about that, and a load of people that I knew were going. I didn't really feel like going along to it. I was thinking that's effort. And you know, I'd been working all day. I was using like that logical part of my brain for such a long time, and I was just mentally exhausted. And I thought, can I really be bothered? And then like the good discipline part of my brain kicked in and told me, no, this is an opportunity for you to be consistent, to build that positive momentum. I went along to this thing even though I didn't feel like it, even though there were loads of new people, because I know that I have to live up to my own standard. I have to be consistent. And the first few conversations I had with people were like very awkward. I was very in my own head. I kind of was experiencing that anxiety I've been talking about. But then as I got into the flow of it, I let go of that need for it to be perfect, and kind of entered that social flow state where I'm like moving around the room, I'm cracking jokes, I'm feeling very, very, very comfortable, and I'm not expecting perfection from myself. I'm kind of just going there and showing off my true, authentic self. And if I'd have listened to that irrational part of my brain telling me to stay home because I'm tired and I don't feel like socializing, I would never have reaped all the rewards, all of that kind of really good experience and practice that I can take forward with me into the future. So you've got to think of this process of social skills like, imagine your comfort level around other people, your ability to feel comfortable and like chat without feeling that just like wall of anxiety and resistance. You've got to think of that as like a muscle, like your bicep or something. You're trying to grow this muscle, but that process isn't always going to be the most comfortable. It's sometimes going to be painful. It's sometimes going to be challenging. Sometimes it feels like you're not progressing. Sometimes it feels like you're going backwards. But at the end of the day, the only thing it takes on your part is showing up again and again. It's just being consistent as fuck. That is what will get you 90% of the returns. And like many things in life, people do struggle to maintain that consistency, to keep showing up time after time. So what do we do when it feels like too much of a struggle? Like, people don't always find themselves being able to go to the gym day after day. Like, a lot of people struggle with fitness and diet and that kind of thing. So how do we make it easier to be consistent? Well, if we're still kind of going with that gym example, what would we do? We would decrease the amount of friction it takes to be consistent. We would make that task seem easier in your head, so it's kind of more enticing. So instead of doing a full workout, we make the task just showing up. We literally just show up. Like, we say, right, I'm just going to go there. I'm going to like do a couple of exercises, or when it comes to socials, because I'm going to speak to like one person and then I'll see how I feel. If I'm still not feeling good, then just go home. That's still like 1% progress that's been made. That's not nothing. And like I've shown up, I've done 1 rep. That in itself is enough. And sometimes you might feel like going home, and that is absolutely fine. But I can bet on the fact that once you're there, once you've shown up and you've done 1, you focused on that, and now you're like, now what? I don't think you'll want to just go home after that. I think more than likely you're going to go on and do the full workout. Just focus on like 1 interaction after the next, like 1 thing at a time. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. If it's too challenging, lower the weight. So to reiterate, treat the process of getting better at social skills like you're growing a muscle. Literally just at the bare minimum, just show up. Even if it's that and only that, just be consistent. So again, moving on, something that I would really struggle with back in the day when I was doing all the hard yards of getting better at socializing, of forcing myself into those uncomfortable situations, was that I'd make mistakes. I'd have those awkward moments where it just felt like I was so stressed out. I didn't know what I was going to say next. I was worried about what everyone was thinking of me, like turning red in the face. And then that in itself would be bad enough. Super awkward moments. But then where things would get really, really bad was after, when I'd be playing it back in my mind, just going over every last vivid detail of that horrible experience, almost making it even worse than what it was in reality. Like now I'm thinking more in depth about what they must have been thinking. Oh my God, they all hate me. They all think I'm this socially awkward freak. I should have never even tried in the first place. And you're kind of building it up even more and more in your head to the point where it's keeping you awake at night. So back in the day, that really would stop me from being brave, from trying new things and putting myself in those situations where I am somewhat likely to mess up, where my kind of lack of confidence, where my lack of experience in these situations is going to show. And that is understandably quite a scary thing. But the difference between back then and now is that I recognize the value of these experiences, of fucking up, of having those awkward moments, of being exposed to that level of discomfort. Because this perfectionist mindset of wanting to go up to everyone you meet and have them think you're this really cool person. You have to preserve this like perfect image of yourself. That, when we kind of fall short of that, we just won't even bother. We won't even bother like trying to make new friends or trying to speak to that girl. We're not willing to show a side of ourselves that is less than this kind of like ego-fueled image that we built up in our heads. When really like no one is actually that perfect. No one can sustain that kind of performance. And I realized quite quickly in this journey that I'm on is that if I'm going to hold on to this perfectionist mindset, trying to control everyone's opinion of me, if I hold on to that, then I'm just going to remain that silent kid forever. Except I'm not going to be a kid. I'm going to grow older and still keep on like having the same problems. So I'm going to be honest with you. I want you to know that I still experience these awkward moments every single week because I'm really pushing myself to speak to people. I really go out of my way to put myself in those situations, and making those mistakes is inevitable when you're kind of outside your comfort zone. Again, it's totally normal to have that initial awkwardness when it's someone you don't know or someone whose opinion you're quite invested in. That's totally normal. But at the end of the day, you have a choice on whether your perceived fuck up, you messing up your words or you turning red, you have a choice on whether that actually is an awkward moment between you and this other person. It's awkward if you make it awkward. if you linger on it and pretend like it's this life or death situation that like, oh, the world's going to end because I messed up. Or you can laugh it off. You can turn it into a joke. You can not take yourself so seriously. And this is what the most charismatic people on this planet have mastered. They will embrace their fuck-ups. They will make mistakes and then kind of play it off as a joke. They'll almost use it to their advantage. They'll like show that human, vulnerable side of themselves and use it as a way to make people like them even more. And I think if you're looking for a particular mindset to kind of get over your fears of kind of what are other people thinking of me? Oh my God, like I just messed up what I said then. Are they going to notice? There's this study that I keep coming back to called the spotlight effect. I'll spare you like all of the details. Basically, this study has proved that the average person forgets 20% of like the details of a conversation within the first 10 minutes. And by the time an hour has passed, they've forgotten 50% of what the conversation was about. So they can only vaguely remember what you were even talking about. So if they can barely remember the topic, do you think they're really going to be thinking about like one little mistake you made in like maybe like a 1 or 2 minute conversation, like a 1 second mistake? They are not really going to be holding on to that. So the spotlight effect is, just to explain what that means, that is essentially the belief that you are always under the spotlight, that everyone's like noticing your like every mistake, they're watching your every move, just waiting for you to fuck up. You feel like you're under the spotlight, but really that's how everyone feels. So it kind of is true when people say you're way more fixated on your own mistakes than anyone else's, because they're too busy thinking about them. Like no one actually cares. So there's that as well if you're trying to kind of overcome this fear of what other people are thinking. And the last thing I'll say is, over these last few years, I've put myself in so many situations where like my ego is on the line, where I've kind of made an effort to connect with someone, whether it's a potential friend or a girl who I'm kind of cold approaching or like expressing my intentions towards. I put myself in a situation where I could get rejected, where I could like end up looking a little bit stupid to someone else. But the way I see it is, because yes, I have been rejected many times and that is a scary thing, don't get me wrong. But I've kind of desensitized to it, myself to it with kind of this mental reframe. And that's to view rejection as a compatibility test. If you've made your best efforts to be your authentic self, to honestly and truly connect with someone, like you're not like faking it, like you're not putting on some fake persona or trying to be the cool guy. You're just honestly coming with your own like true and authentic energy, which I think is something I'm naturally quite good at. I don't intentionally try to be someone I'm not. Then you can say that you've made every effort and you're just like being yourself. Like you're presenting yourself in about as honest a way as you can to this other person. Like they know who you are. And if they still don't like that, then you can just take that as a sign that the two of you, the relationship would not have worked. In whatever capacity this relationship is, it would not have worked between you. And you could have come at it with some kind of fake persona. You could have like started pretending you're like a different person that maybe they would have liked more. But really that's all gonna come out in time, because it's impossible to sustain a fake personality. So really what you've done by just being yourself is you've saved yourself from making like a fake friend who's probably just gonna, I don't know, like bitch about you behind your back. You've just sped up the process and the two of you can just move on with your life knowing that this wasn't something that would have worked anyway. So that's going to wrap up the video. If you like to work on your social skills, seek one-to-one advice from me and connect with other like-minded people on the same journey who are also trying to overcome things like their social anxiety and become more confident and charismatic people in general, then go through the link in the description, join my Discord server, my free community where we're all just having a good time trying to better ourselves. So I will see you in the next one.